The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, a place where entire civilizations clashed for control, where alliances shifted and broken promises often led to devastating wars. For years, the alien forces, under the leadership of Queen Zalara, had dominated the stars. Their empire stretched across multiple star systems, and they had crushed countless species under their rule. But no matter how much they conquered, they always seemed to underestimate one thing: humanity. Captain Adrian Cross stood on the bridge of the Arcadia, gazing out at the sprawling battlefield before him. The stars sparkled in the distance, but the emptiness was filled with tension. His fleet had made its way deep into alien territory, and their target was clear. The alien stronghold, known as Talon's Reach, was located on a hostile world. Its atmosphere poisoned, its surface torn apart by centuries of war. The alien empire's capital fleet was stationed there, and it was time to strike. Humanity had fought for so long, and the day of reckoning had finally come. Adrian's crew, a group of experienced soldiers, stood by his side. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Mara Jenkins, leaned against the console beside him, her eyes scanning the tactical displays. The Arcadia was the flagship of the Earth fleet, a symbol of humanity's defiance. "We're in position, Captain," Mara said. Her voice was calm, steady, but there was a hint of unease. Every mission like this carried the risk of failure. The stakes were high, and this was one of humanity's final pushes to stop the alien queen and her empire from spreading further across the galaxy.
Adrian nodded without turning his gaze from the view outside.
"All units, prepare for the assault! We make our move now!" His voice was filled with resolve, and his crew responded immediately, ready to execute the plan that had been months in the making. As the Earth fleet advanced towards the alien stronghold, the stars began to blur into streaks of light, the ship's faster-than-light drive kicking in. The fleet was ready for battle. In the command room, the tension was palpable. Every soldier aboard Arcadia knew the importance of this mission. If they succeeded, it would deal a crushing blow to the alien empire. If they failed, the galaxy would never be the same. The ground team, led by Adrian, was already preparing for the infiltration. The mission was clear: breach the alien fortress, destroy the main command center, and neutralize the alien queen herself if necessary. No one had ever faced her directly in battle. Queen Zalara had become a legend, her name feared across the galaxy. She was ruthless, calculating, and her ability to lead her forces into battle had made her a nearly invincible leader. But Adrian had a different plan. Humanity was not like the other species the alien queen had conquered. They were resilient. They fought with a fierce determination that made them unpredictable and dangerous. The Arcadia dropped out of faster-than-light travel just outside the atmosphere of the poisoned planet. The alien defenses were formidable, but they had been expecting the attack. Drones, weapons platforms, and energy shields covered the planet like a net. As the fleet began their assault, Adrian's team, consisting of the most elite soldiers Earth had to offer, boarded their dropships. They would fight their way into the heart of the alien fortress. With the sound of clanking armor and the hum of weapons charging, the soldiers readied themselves for the drop. Adrian could feel the familiar weight of his combat gear settling over his shoulders. His mind was sharp, focused. He couldn't afford to let emotions cloud his judgment. There was a war to win, but even in the midst of the chaos, a small part of him couldn't shake the feeling that this battle, this encounter, would be different from any they had fought before. As the dropships descended into the atmosphere, the surface of the planet came into view. A desolate, crater-filled landscape, twisted metal structures rising from the ground like the remnants of a broken world. The alien fortress loomed in the distance, a sprawling complex of reinforced walls and alien technology. It would not be easy to penetrate, but Adrian was certain that humanity's will could break through even the strongest defenses. The dropships hit the ground with a deafening thud, the shock waves reverberating through the barren landscape. Soldiers quickly disembarked, weapons raised and shields at the ready. Adrian was the first to exit, his boots hitting the ground with a heavy thud. His eyes scanned the horizon, searching for any signs of movement. The alien forces would be expecting them, but they had no idea what kind of force humanity was capable of. "Move out!" Adrian ordered, his voice cutting through the comms. "Stay sharp! Watch each other's backs." The soldiers moved with precision, a well-oiled machine. They advanced toward the fortress, every step calculated, every move covered. The alien defenses had been weakened by the fleet's attack, but the alien soldiers would not go down without a fight. It didn't take long before the first wave of enemies appeared. Alien soldiers, heavily armored and armed with energy weapons that crackled with lethal force. They opened fire, and the battlefield erupted into chaos. Adrian ducked behind a nearby structure, narrowly avoiding a blast. His team was already returning fire, their weapons lighting up the dark landscape. The alien soldiers were fast and fierce, but humanity's soldiers were better. Adrian could see the look in their eyes, the same determination that had brought them this far. It wasn't just about the battle. It was about survival. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity would not bend, that no matter how many battles they lost, they would never surrender. The sound of gunfire, the crackle of energy blasts, and the clashing of metal against metal filled the air. But Adrian kept moving forward. His team was pushing toward the fortress, inch by inch, fighting off wave after wave of alien attackers. And then, in the midst of the battle, something unexpected happened. As the alien forces regrouped, a new figure appeared on the battlefield. Adrian froze for a split second, his breath catching in his throat. Standing at the edge of the battle, flanked by a group of elite guards, was Queen Zalara herself. She was everything they had heard about, tall, regal, and exuding an aura of power that seemed to resonate through the air. Her alien features were unlike anything human, but there was an undeniable grace in the way she moved, in the way she commanded her forces. Her sharp, calculating eyes swept over the battlefield, her gaze locking onto Adrian's in an instant. For a moment, time seemed to slow down. Adrian's heart raced, but he didn't falter. He had faced death before, but this was different. There was something about her, something familiar, and yet completely foreign. He couldn't explain it, but in that single glance, it felt like she knew him. She knew everything about him. The alien queen raised her hand, signaling for her guards to stand down. She took a step forward, her long, flowing robes shimmering in the dim light. The sounds of the battle seemed to fade into the background as she approached. Adrian tightened his grip on his weapon, but he didn't move. The queen's gaze never left his, and in the midst of all the chaos, he could feel something stir within him, something he hadn't expected. When she was only a few feet away, Queen Zalara spoke, her voice low and commanding. "I never forgot your hands, human," she said, her words cutting through the tension in the air. The words hung in the silence, like a weight, heavy and unexpected. Adrian's mind raced, but the answer eluded him. He knew he had never met this queen before, never fought her face to face, but somehow those words resonated with him. Had they crossed paths before? Had she been a part of a battle he didn't remember? The queen's eyes softened for a brief moment, as though something deep within her was stirred by the recognition. She was an enemy, yet her words carried no malice. She wasn't here to finish the war. There was something else, something unspoken, something that couldn't be understood at first glance. Adrian's soldiers fought on around them, but he couldn't tear his gaze away from the queen. It was like standing at the edge of something he couldn't fully comprehend. His instincts told him to fight, to push forward, but the moment was too powerful, too personal. "I've seen many of your kind, Captain Cross," the queen continued, "but none like you." Her words were cryptic, and they hung in the air, waiting for an answer. Adrian finally spoke, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts racing through his mind. "I don't know you, but I'll do whatever it takes to stop your empire." Her lips curled into a faint smile. "We'll see, human. We'll see." And then, just as quickly as she had appeared, Queen Zalara turned and retreated into the shadows, leaving Adrian standing there, bewildered and with more questions than answers. The battle raged on, but now it felt like there was something much larger at play, something that neither side fully understood. The war was far from over, but that moment, that strange encounter, would stay with Adrian forever. The Queen had spoken, and her words would echo through the rest of the conflict. Whatever this was, whatever connection they shared, it was just the beginning. After their brief encounter on the battlefield, the alien queen, Zalara, had vanished as quickly as she appeared, leaving Captain Adrian Cross standing in the middle of chaos. His soldiers continued their fight, pushing back the alien forces as best they could, but Adrian's mind was elsewhere. He couldn't stop thinking about the Queen's words. "I never forgot your hands, human." It was a simple statement, yet it carried weight. For a moment, it felt like the whole battle had faded away, leaving only those words hanging in the air. What did she mean by that? Had they met before? Was there something more to her words than he understood? He couldn't shake the feeling that something about this encounter was different, but he had no time to dwell on it. The war was still raging around him, and humanity's fate rested on the shoulders of his fleet.
Captain! We've got more hostiles incoming! Merritt Jenkins, his second in command, shouted over the comms!
Her voice snapped Adrian back to the present. He shook his head, forcing himself to focus.
Understood, Lieutenant. Stay sharp, everyone.
The battle was far from over. Adrian and his soldiers continued to push forward, storming through the alien fortress, the sound of energy blasts and gunfire filling the air. The alien forces fought with the same ferocity they had shown before, but there was a difference now. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their home, their queen, and their way of life. Adrian had known from the start that this wouldn't be an easy fight. But something about the Queen's presence on the battlefield had shaken him. Zalara was no ordinary enemy. She was a leader, a strategist, and above all, she was a survivor. No matter how many battles she had won, no matter how many lives she had taken, she was still standing. And now she had shown an interest in him, a human soldier, one of the many enemies she had fought for years. As Adrian made his way deeper into the fortress, his thoughts kept drifting back to the encounter with the Queen. He had never seen her up close before, not like this. Her beauty, her strength, it was all so striking. It wasn't just her appearance, though. It was the way she carried herself, the quiet confidence, the calmness in her eyes despite the madness of the battlefield. She wasn't like the other alien leaders he had fought against. She was different, but no matter how much he tried to focus on the task at hand, those words kept coming back to him. "I never forgot your hands, human." It was a memory that gnawed at him, one that he couldn't ignore. He had to know what she meant. Had they met before? Or was there some deeper meaning behind her words? "Captain, we're almost at the command center." Mara's voice broke through his thoughts. "We've neutralized most of the outer defenses, but the inner sanctum is heavily guarded." Adrian nodded, steeling himself. This was it. They were so close to their objective. They had come too far to turn back now. He and his team had one job: to take down the alien empire's leadership. But with every step they took, the question of the Queen's intentions loomed over him. What was she really after? Why had she spoken to him like that? "We push forward," Adrian said, his voice steady.
No hesitations. We finish this now.
The command center was located at the heart of the fortress, a massive structure built into the side of a towering mountain. The closer they got, the more dangerous it became. The alien forces knew they were coming, and they had prepared. Heavy artillery platforms were scattered throughout the area, and elite soldiers guarded every entrance. But Adrian and his team had fought through worse. They had come this far, and they weren't about to stop now. As they neared the entrance to the command center, Adrian felt a familiar weight settle over him. It was the feeling of knowing that whatever happened next, there was no turning back. The soldiers moved into position, their weapons ready. Adrian was at the front, leading the charge. His heart raced, but he kept his focus, trusting his team to follow his lead. The doors to the command center opened with a heavy, mechanical sound. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Alien soldiers lined the walls, their weapons raised. They had been waiting for this moment, preparing for the humans to arrive. But this time, things were different. The Queen was not leading them. She was somewhere else, waiting. Adrian's team stormed the room, opening fire on the alien soldiers. The battle was fierce, but they fought with precision and discipline. Every soldier knew their role, and they executed it flawlessly. But as the battle raged on, Adrian couldn't help but feel that something was off. The alien forces were retreating, not fighting with the same intensity they had shown before. It was as if they were waiting for something. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged, tall and regal, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through the chaos. It was Zalara. She stood at the center of the room, her presence commanding the attention of everyone around her. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Adrian's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected her to be here, not like this. She wasn't fighting. She wasn't commanding her soldiers. She was simply watching.
I thought I told you to stay out of my way, human.
Zalara's voice rang out, sharp and cold. But there was something in her tone, something that hinted at a deeper emotion. Was it anger? Regret? It was hard to tell. Adrian took a step forward, his hand gripping his weapon tightly. I don't take orders from you, Zalara.
This ends today. Zalara's gaze never left him, her expression unreadable. You think you can defeat me?
My empire? My people? She asked, her voice laced with a quiet threat.
You are nothing more than a pawn in a game you don't understand.
Adrian didn't flinch. I understand enough.
And I'm not going to stop until your empire falls.
The Queen raised a hand, her energy shifting as she gathered her power.
You don't know what you're dealing with, human,
she said.
Your people are strong, yes, but you are nothing compared to what I have faced.
What I have endured? Adrian's eyes narrowed. I don't care about your past.
I care about the future, and the future of this galaxy doesn't involve your rule.
Zalara's lips curled into a smile, but it wasn't a smile of victory. It was something else, something deeper. You're right. Human. The future doesn't involve my rule. But it does involve something much more important. Adrian's heart raced as she spoke, a feeling of dread creeping over him. He had no idea what she was talking about, but he could sense that this was a turning point. This battle, this war, was about to take a different path. He didn't know how, but he could feel it. Suddenly, Zalara raised her hand once more, and the room fell into silence. The energy in the air shifted, and the alien forces that had been retreating slowly began to gather around her. It was as if they were waiting for her next command. Enough, Zalara said softly, her voice filled with an almost imperceptible sadness.
This war is over. Adrian couldn't believe what he was hearing. The Queen wasn't surrendering, but she wasn't fighting either.
She had stopped the battle. Her words were not those of a leader about to crush her enemies, but of someone who had already made up her mind. Adrian stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. The battle was over, but the war, that was far from decided. The Queen had stopped her forces, but what was her true goal? I never forgot your hands, human, she repeated, her voice softer now. And now, I offer you something you never expected.
Adrian's heart raced.
What was she offering? Zalara's gaze softened as she stared at him, and for the first time there was no malice in her eyes. There was no hatred. There was only something else. Something Adrian couldn't understand. The war was far from over. But in this moment, everything had changed. The battle had stopped, but the war was far from over. Captain Adrian Cross stood in the middle of the command center, staring at Queen Zalara as her words echoed in his mind. This war is over. The words didn't make sense. How could it be over? He had fought for so long, led his soldiers through countless battles, and watched so many of his friends die for this moment. But Zalara was not offering peace. She wasn't surrendering. Her eyes held something else, something Adrian didn't understand. The room was still, and the soldiers around him seemed just as confused. The alien forces that had been fighting with such fury moments before had all stopped, their weapons lowered. It was as if a switch had been flipped, and the violence that had consumed this place now faded into silence. Adrian's heart raced. His mind was filled with questions. What had just happened? Why had Zalara stopped the fighting? And why had she spoken to him like that? He had been prepared for another battle, another struggle for survival. He had expected to fight until the end, until the alien empire was defeated. But now, in the midst of this strange, tense calm, he didn't know what to think. Zalara moved closer, her steps slow and deliberate. She walked through the scattered bodies of her soldiers, now lying motionless on the ground. Her gaze never left Adrian. There was something in her eyes, something that felt different from the cold, calculating queen he had seen before. This wasn't the same leader who had crushed countless species under her empire's boot. This was something else. "You are not like the others, human," Zalara said, her voice steady but filled with an emotion Adrian couldn't place. "You fight differently." "You think differently. Your people." She trailed off, almost as if she were lost in thought. "You remind me of something I once knew, something long forgotten." Adrian's mind raced, but he kept his voice calm. "What are you talking about? Why are you stopping the battle? What is this?" Zalara stopped in front of him, looking up at him with those piercing, glowing eyes. "You want to end the war. You want your people to be free of my empire. But that is not the only path." Adrian frowned, shaking his head. "You're asking me to trust you? After everything you've done?"
"I am not asking you to trust me," she said softly.
"I am offering you a choice you and your people never considered, one that will end the war without more bloodshed."
Adrian was taken aback.
This wasn't the queen he had expected. She was offering a way out. But could he trust her? Could humanity trust her? She had led her people through countless campaigns of destruction. Now she was asking for peace. But at what cost? What was her true plan? "You expect me to believe you just like that?" Adrian asked, his voice growing sharper. "You've been killing us for years. You've destroyed entire worlds."
"Why should I believe you now?" Zalara's expression didn't change. "I did what I had to do to protect my people."
"To secure our survival. But things have changed."
The galaxy is changing, and I see now that war will not save us.
"It will only destroy us all." Adrian stood still, trying to make sense of what she was saying. The weight of her words settled over him. Could it be true? Was this just another trick? Or was there something more to her actions than he understood? "There is no victory in this war," Zalara continued. "Your people fight with courage, yes, but you fight for survival, not for a future. If you destroy us, what will you have left? A galaxy full of ashes? A future built on hate?" Adrian clenched his fists, his mind racing. He couldn't deny the truth in her words. The war had cost both sides so much. Humanity had lost so much. But could peace really be possible? Could they find a way to end this madness without more bloodshed? Zalara's gaze softened. "I have seen the strength in you, Captain Cross. The strength in your people. But I have also seen the consequences of endless conflict. It leads to nothing but destruction." "You've destroyed so much," Adrian said, his voice filled with anger. "How can you ask us to forget that? I do not ask you to forget, she replied.
I ask you to choose a different path.
A path that does not lead to the same fate as all the others before us. Adrian's heart pounded in his chest. He had always believed that victory was the only way forward, that defeat was not an option. But now, standing before him was the queen of an empire that had torn through the galaxy, offering a chance at peace. Could he really trust her? Could he lead his people down a path that was different from the one they had always fought for? We are not the same, Adrian said quietly. You and I, our people, are not the same. Zalare nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth in his words. You are right. We are not the same. But perhaps we can be something else. Something new. The silence between them stretched on, the weight of the moment hanging heavy in the air. Adrian's soldiers, still wary, kept their distance, unsure of what was happening. But they knew their captain. They trusted him. And in that trust, Adrian knew he had to make a choice. He had fought for years. He had seen too many friends fall, too many innocents destroyed. But he also saw the possibility for something more, something different. Could he let go of the rage, the hatred, the desire for revenge? Could humanity really build something better with their enemies, with the very people who had destroyed so much of what they held dear? What do you want from us? Adrian asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zalara's expression softened, and for the first time, Adrian saw a glimpse of the person behind the crown. I want to end the war. I want to build something better, together. But it will not be easy. It will take time. It will take trust, and above all, it will take sacrifice. Adrian took a step back, his thoughts swirling. He had come to this world to destroy the enemy, to end the war. But now, standing before the alien queen, he realized that there was more at stake than just victory. There was a chance for something greater. But could he accept it? Could humanity? The choice lay before him, like a fork in the road. One path led to more destruction, more death. The other path was uncertain, filled with the unknown. It would require trust, cooperation, and the courage to step away from the past. Adrian looked into Azara's eyes, trying to see through the walls she had built. There was something there, something real. But was it enough? Is this really what you want? Adrian asked, his voice filled with doubt. Peace? Zalara met his gaze, her eyes unwavering. Yes, peace. For both of us, for all of us. The sound of distant gunfire echoed through the fortress, a reminder that the war was not truly over. Not yet. But Adrian knew that in this moment, the path he chose would shape the future of the galaxy. His decision would determine whether humanity would be consumed by the flames of war or rise above them to build a new future. You're asking us to trust you, Adrian said, his voice steady. But can you trust us? Zalara's lips parted in a faint, almost imperceptible smile. I must. I have no other choice. Just as you have none. For a long moment, Adrian stood in silence, the weight of the choice pressing down on him. He'd always believed in the power of strength, of fighting for what was right. But now, in the face of the Queen's offer, he realized that strength came in many forms. Sometimes, true strength lay in choosing the difficult path, the one that required understanding, compromise, and the willingness to change. He looked back at his soldiers, their faces filled with uncertainty. They were waiting for him, for his decision. Adrian knew that whatever path he chose, it would not be easy, but it was a path he had to take. We'll give you one chance, Adrian said, his voice firm. One chance to prove that this is what you want, and if you betray us... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Zalara nodded, the gravity of his words settling over her. I will not betray you, human, but we must walk this path together. Or else, the war will continue, and there will be no winners. Adrian took a deep breath. The choice had been made. Now, they would have to live with it. The decision had been made. Adrian Cross had agreed to give Queen Zalara a chance for peace, but it wasn't an easy choice. The air between them was thick with uncertainty. The battle had paused, but the war was not truly over. The soldiers on both sides stood watching, unsure of what was happening, unsure if peace could ever be a reality. Adrian had always believed in victory, through strength, through sheer force of will. But now, standing in the shadow of the alien queen, he realized that sometimes victory could take a different form. For the first time in years, Adrian felt something he hadn't expected. A strange mix of hope and doubt filled his chest. Could humanity really find peace with the alien empire? Could they trust the queen who had once been their enemy? Could Zalara be telling the truth when she said she wanted to end the war? Adrian looked around at his soldiers. They were ready for anything. They had fought long and hard to reach this point, but they had never been asked to fight for peace before. Peace was a foreign concept to them, something they had never considered as a possibility. The idea that the queen, the leader of an empire that had caused so much pain and destruction, could change was almost impossible to grasp. Zalara stood tall, her presence commanding. There was no arrogance in her posture now, no pride in her eyes. She looked tired, almost weary, as if the weight of the war had taken its toll on her as well. For the first time, Adrian could see her for what she truly was, not just a ruthless conqueror, but a leader burdened by the consequences of her choices.
"I know you are unsure," Zalara said, her voice breaking the silence. "I know you have questions."
But this is not just about us anymore. It is about the future of all who remain in this galaxy, the future of your people, of mine. Adrian didn't reply at first. He had heard these words before, spoken by leaders who claimed to want peace, but only used it as a tool to gain more power. But something about Xalara's tone made him stop and listen. She wasn't asking for submission. She was asking for something more: understanding, cooperation, a chance to end the cycle of violence that had consumed them both for so long.
What do you want from us? Adrian asked, his voice steady, though his heart was heavy. What kind of future are you offering?
After everything you've done, how can you expect us to trust you? Zalara's eyes softened, and for a moment, Adrian saw a flicker of something more than the alien queen he had fought against. I do not expect you to trust me right away, she said.
But I offer you this, an alliance, a chance to rebuild, together.
We can end the war without further bloodshed. We can work together to ensure that no more lives are lost in this senseless conflict. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility. Adrian could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had always believed that the end of the war meant the defeat of the enemy. But now, standing before Zalara, he realized that victory was not always as simple as it seemed. An alliance, Adrian repeated, his mind working through the possibilities. You want us to join forces with the very empire that has killed so many of our people? Yes, Zalara replied, her voice firm but calm. I want us to create something new, something better. The galaxy cannot survive on endless war. We cannot keep fighting each other until nothing is left. We have the power to change that, but only if we put aside our differences and work together. Adrian shook his head, feeling the weight of his doubts. It was hard to imagine a future where humans and aliens worked together, especially after everything that had happened. The deaths, the destruction, the years of conflict. How could all of that be forgotten in an instant?
But how do we know you won't betray us?
Adrian asked, his voice filled with suspicion.
How can we trust that this isn't just another one of your tricks?
Zalara met his gaze without hesitation.
You cannot trust me just yet. But you can trust the actions I take from this point forward.
If you give me this chance, I will prove it to you. No more lies. No more deceit. Only honesty.
The silence stretched on, and Adrian's mind raced. He had always believed that peace was something that only came after total victory, after the enemy was completely defeated.
But this was different. This was a chance at something better, something that went beyond just winning. It was a chance to break the cycle, to rebuild from the ashes. He looked back at his soldiers standing in formation behind him. They were watching him, waiting for his decision. Their faces were filled with uncertainty, just like his. They had followed him into every battle, through every challenge, trusting that he would lead them to victory. But now, they were being asked to follow him into the unknown. Peace with the alien queen? It was a hard choice to make. Adrian took a deep breath, weighing the consequences of his decision. He could reject this offer of peace, and continue the war. But what would that achieve? More deaths? More destruction? More years of fighting? No, Adrian said, finally breaking the silence. I don't know if I can trust you, Zara, but I can't ignore the chance you're offering.
We'll give you one chance to prove that you mean what you say.
Zalara's expression remained unreadable, but her eyes softened. That is all I ask, human. One chance. The tension in the room seemed to ease just slightly. Adrian could feel the shift in the air. His soldiers were still uncertain, but they trusted him. If he believed that peace was possible, they would follow. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. Peace, real peace, wasn't something that could happen overnight. It would take time, effort, and trust. But it was a chance at a better future, and that was something worth fighting for. Zalara turned to face her own soldiers, who had been watching in silence. She raised her hand, and the sound of energy weapons being deactivated echoed through the command center. One by one, the alien soldiers lowered their weapons, their posture no longer one of aggression, but of waiting. Adrian turned back to Zalara. If we're going to do this, we need to make it clear to both our people. We can't just stop fighting and hope everyone follows. We'll need a plan. We'll need to make sure the message is heard across the galaxy. Zalare nodded. I agree. This will take time, but it is a start. A new beginning. The room was still, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. Adrian looked around at his soldiers, then back at Zalara. There was a long road ahead, filled with uncertainty. But they had a chance for something better. We'll need to meet with our leaders, Adrian said, and we'll need to convince them that this is worth the risk. This isn't just about us anymore.
It's about the future of everyone. Zalara's gaze was unwavering.
I will do whatever it takes to prove that this is the right path for both our peoples. And so, with that, the first step toward peace had been taken. The path would not be easy. There would be many challenges ahead. But for the first time in a long time, Adrian felt a flicker of hope, a small but steady light in the darkness. The war was not over. But maybe, just maybe, they had found a way to end it.